This could go worse. You're now watching Shaw Goods TV. No script, no schedule, just me. Hey. So I just wanted to pop in really quickly because these videos coming up are actually videos that I recorded like a year ago. And I recorded them and put them on TikTok, but because I think of the context or the content rather, they were not all of them, but a lot of them were muted. I did multiple parts, and some of the parts just continued to be muted or taken down. So I just took them all down because what the fuck. And it wasn't anything because I didn't want people to know or see. I absolutely, for the first time, was talking about this, and so I was excited that people were gonna finally hear my story. And so this is me just kind of reposting it and on a different platform, I think under a little more lenient guidelines. And so I wanted to just kind of pop up and give that note to explain anything I may say that may be in the past tense or what have you. But also I wanted to explain, because when this video was posted for the brief time it was on TikTok, because I don't think it made it like a day, there were questions and comments that came up that were, asking why I stayed, or, alluding or insinuating that I didn't fight hard enough for my kids, my sons. And I was welcoming those comments and questions. I still do. I did answer those and reply to them. Honestly, I was just young. That's the easiest answer to give. I know it's not always what people want to hear, but that's the biggest reason why I dealt with things that I did, or that's one of the biggest reasons. The other part of it, I was extremely afraid of my ex at the time. I am literally diagnosed with PTSD, not just from this relationship, but from even my childhood and some trauma and things I went through. And so I was terrified. Like, you can't imagine this. Like, I was afraid for my life. And so the way things went, looking back, would I change the way I went about it, knowing what I know now? Of course, hindsight is 2020. But what's most important to me is that my sons understand my decision making or my choices that I made at the time, and they do. They fully understand it. Unfortunately, they got to experience on their own, what I was dealing with all those years. But that's pretty much it. Feel free to ask your questions in the comments. Nothing's going to offend me or make me feel away. I mean, try not to be disrespectful, but if you are, even so, it's not going to, like, who the fuck are you to be, right? So, this gets a little long, I think. I'm pretty sure this is going to end up being multiple parts, but here goes part one. So I'm a woman. I pay child support. I've been on child support for a very long time. And there is so much that I have to say about it and I want to talk about. I don't generally talk about it on my public pages like this one because I just don't. There's no like shame or anything like that, because if I tell you the story time behind how I got on motherfucking child support, you'd immediately be like, what? But I have such strong opinions about it, and bro, I be wanting to start a goddamn revolution, start something, because it is a motherfucking racket. Like, no, I'm not saying you're not supposed to take care of your children, because you are. But the way that it was used as financial abuse against me from my ex physical abuser, wild. And the way that has impacted my entire adult life, wilder. And the way that I see so many, unfortunately, mostly men going through the same shit as me and nobody talks about it. The way that child support is used as a form of punishment, wild, because it's not the case in every situation. Like, taking care of your children should not be enforced as if it's a punishment. And the way I almost went to jail like 2 weeks ago on my fucking birthday makes me want to talk about it. Y'all want a story time? Tell me, because I'll tell y'all if y'all want one. All right, so let me do, because I know it's going to end up being multiple parts, but let me go ahead and get this out real quick. So when I was 15, literally 2 days after I turned 15, I was hanging out with my bestie at the time. I really wasn't a wild girl. I was definitely a nerd tomboy in high school. I hung up with the guys, but this particular day I was being wingman for my bestie. Long story short, my day ended up with me getting, I definitely conceived my first child. More details on that in another story time. So I ended up having my first son at 15. He was definitely born mentally disabled. Pretty significantly. Again, more details about him specifically in another story time. So I had my first son. I'm 15. I dropped out of school. I had 2 jobs. I worked 2 jobs, had my own place, had my son. When my son was, I had left the state and moved to New York because I'm from South Carolina. I moved to New York right after I had my son. I was there for a little while and then I came back because it was a lot. I came back and when I came back and then my son was about 2 or 3, I met this guy. I call him Diddy, but in light of today's current events, I am not going to call him that. Anyway, met him, da 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 da. I still had my own place. I was still pretty young. I was still working 2 jobs to take care of me and my disabled son. And he came in, I got pregnant again pretty quickly. To be quite honest with you, he got me pregnant like every year for like 3 or 4 years straight. I got pregnant. He was from New York, but had been down here for a little while, or down in South Carolina where I was at the time. He ended up leaving me while I was pregnant to go to Connecticut to get a job. He had a good job offer. And then 3 weeks later, he came back and got me what my was now 2 sons. And we went to Connecticut. Leading up to him coming back to get me from Connecticut, everything seemed great. Like, this is definitely the first real relationship I've been in. I'm still in my teens. I'm an older teen, like 18, 19. But whatever. Leading up to that, he did everything for me. He paid my bills. He gave me money. We went out to eat. He bought me things. It seemed legit. I get to Connecticut with him and literally everything changed overnight. Like, day 1, we're this. Moved to Connecticut day 2. Completely different. It was like night and fucking day. And so he went from being this, like, helping me, there for me and my son and now our new baby, to any form of physical, emotional, mental, financial abuse you can think of, I absolutely endured. And I went through this with him. I ended up being with him for a total of like 10 years. Eventually I ended up having a 3rd son. I got pregnant in between, but one of those I honestly, because at that point I knew I didn't want to be with this man anymore. But I know you're like, well, why would you keep having kids? It wasn't my choice. And I'm going to leave it at that. And so by the time I have a total of 3 sons, the abuse is terrible for me and my oldest son. Now, he treated our 2 sons great. But for me and my oldest son, terrible. Absolutely horrible. Like, I would leave to go to work and he would abuse my son or kick my son at the house. Mind you, my son is significantly mentally disabled. My son would have bruises. Police were involved. Now, the first time I did call the police, I'm not going to lie, I never called them again because that resulted in the whole family being on papers, and that was a lot. And I just made a vow to never get myself involved in that again. So after that instance, the courts were never aware of how significant the abuse continued to be to both me and my oldest son. I kind of kept that to myself. Like, family members kind of knew, and everyone knew he was crazy. But I was young. I was super young, and in my mind, I was doing a better job keeping my family together in a 2-family household than separating them. Don't ask me why I thought that, but I did. And this continued, like I said, for probably a total of 10, 11 years. The other thing that was going on while I'm dealing with the abuse and terribleness from him, I'm also dealing with my oldest son, who, like I said, had been disabled from birth. His needs are getting to be too much for a normal household. Like, he definitely needs to be in some sort of facility. But where we lived in Connecticut at the time, they just didn't have anything like that. For like, my son doesn't have psychological problems, he's mentally disabled, and there's a difference. The facilities that were nearby were all for significantly like psychological, like bro, like I didn't want my son there. And so whenever we caught whenever the last time me and my ex had a fight, one of my sons contacted the call 911. And so when they came in, that automatically opened the DCF case because children were there was fighting, da 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 da. And at the time, I had sent my oldest son to go live with my mom because the abuse for him was so great in my household. I just wanted him to be away from that. School had started that year and he hadn't quite gotten back, so that was a major thing for the state of Connecticut. They had to bring him home. And now I'm working with a caseworker. At some point, they had us like do things like padlock our windows and doors and shit like this because my son would leave the house in the middle of the night. No one would know. He would break out. He jumped from a second floor window. Like, his needs were great. And I had been telling them, like, bro, y'all need to get me some help. Like, we are dealing with a lot. And they were kind of just seeing like, oh, it's not that bad. You're just a young mother. Da 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 da. That wasn't the case. So long story short, one day, my son had done something like, whatever. He used to do crazy stuff like fill the tub with water and like in the middle of the night while we were sleeping. Their room was on the other side of the house. And we woke up one morning to some bullshit that he had done. Typical stuff for him. And my ex was like, I can't take this anymore. I'm going down to DCF. They're going to do something. And he left. And he was gone for about an hour. He came back. I was like, what happened? And he was like, oh, I talked to them. I told them. And then an hour after that, DCF showed up with the police escort and removed my son from the home. I never knew what he said to these people, but I've always believed that he said something so impactful or violent that they felt that they had to come get my son immediately, and they did. And he never came back home. So the first time when I posted the video earlier today, the first one talking about child support, I definitely forgot that I made that video and I went to work and I came back. I was like, oh shit, okay, I'll make the next one. And then I made the next one and fucking forgot for the rest of the evening. I just woke up from a little nap, so I guess I'll go ahead and do the rest. So yeah, here we go. So my son left the house and never came back home. Granted, my son did not need to be in a normal household based on his needs, and the end result is what was needed, but again, no telling what this dude told these people. And my son then left, my oldest son. So then now it's me, him, and my two younger sons. Now, things that I did not mention in my last video. When I left from South Carolina the second time to go live in Connecticut with him, when we got the place, all of the utilities went in my name because I'm the one that had not even good, but pretty much no credit at that point because I was so young. I didn't have anything. I got the cell phones, the bills went in my name. My disabled son got a couple of doulas every month. I had like a little job. Eventually I had like 2 little jobs, but I worked and he worked. And the rule was made when we moved to our place that all of the bills that were in my name, I would pay, and then he would pay the rent. We had a really nice apartment. Our landlord was new. She didn't know what the fuck she was doing, so she gave us our really nice apartment for the low. Like, it was like less than $600. Right now, I know y'all like, what? I wish we could have that, but at the time, it was even more of a steal. Like, she just didn't know any better. So he only paid the $500 and something dollar rent. I paid the electricity, the cell phones, the house phone, the gas, and paid for groceries. And at some point, he got laid off from his really good job he had, and so he started working like little construction jobs, or basically he was in like the union of welders, and they would work jobs for a few months. Then you would get, this is pretty common, I think. Then you get laid off for a couple of months. You get unemployment until a new site or whatever, until a new job started around. And it didn't really matter because I was paying the bulk of the bills any fucking way. But whatever. So this had been going on the entire time we were together. And when my oldest son left, when he was like 10 years old at this point, when he went to the group home, and now it's just the four of us left at the house. Things just continued to go downhill for the most part. And eventually we did break up like completely. Oh, because I forgot to say. So yeah, he would get the job and then leave the job. I mean, be laid off like everybody else and then get another job. Well, at some point in between there, he started having seizures. He hung out with a rapper one night, like an actual rapper, and spent some time, spent the night hanging out in New York, came home the next day, told me all about the time that he'd had. We had a regular conversation. He was like, I'm tired, I'm going to go to bed now. And he went to sleep, and then he went into a full grand mal seizure, like maybe 45 minutes later. And then continued to have those 2 to 3 times a week for the next however long. When he first started having them, I was pregnant with our last son. And so I was dealing with all that. He couldn't work anymore and pretty much never went back to work from that point on. I was taking care of everything. My other son ended up leaving. I continued to take care of the household, him, the kids, everything, whatever it took. And then eventually we finally broke up for good because things were so bad. Like, it was so bad. At this point, I had grown up. I had started to see where it was bad for me to be with him. And even though I was keeping my family together, the status of our family life was just fucking horrible, and my sons just didn't need to be around that. And so things were pretty much done.
Time out!
Make sure to come back for part 2. You've been watching Shawgood's seating. Too real to rehearse. Too real to hide.
Protocol brief.
Installing
Installing
truth
slash
extract.
extracting core values.
Loading
Loading
software.
upgrade.
At full clarity.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Shawgood.